In this episode, we go to the GN in 1970 to track a unique load using JMRI, address slow or squeaky wheels, as well as look at Willmar Yard. We assemble a panel that needs to be used, and also take a look at the ICC Caboose in action.
And why not throw in a run-by?
So kick back, roll an axle, and maybe you'll accidentally learn something on this episode of the GN in 1970.
70s.
So out of curiosity, we thought, how does JMRI really work and what cars are moving around? We took a couple bulkheads and put some ridiculously obvious pieces of wood on the bulkhead to track them. A common question we get asked is, how do you find those cars once they've gone about the rails? Well, there's a couple ways. You can type in the actual car number if you know it. You can search your car type if you know it. Here's the Sioux Line car that we added that load to. But a lot of times I'll just search by type and I'll look for the car that I'm trying to acquire. Now in this case, I'm looking for a Great Northern 60-foot bulkhead, which is right there. It says Lines West, West Staging, Train 81. Let's go find it. All right, here's West Staging, and
It's not Train 81, it's technically Train 82 because it's an eastbound.
well, here's the bulkhead. I have been tracking the information on the top of the load by where JMRI has been putting it, so thus far, it's been traveling about. And I did find a clerical error on the load itself. I kept writing load because, well, it was a physical load, when in reality, JMRI saw this car as empty, and its goal was return empties west, and that's what it did.
Oh, here's a 10-second tip.
Squeaky wheels or slow rollers, grab a pencil and work graphite down into the journals. Will help the thing roll a little better and hopefully squeak a little less.
Well, in the same Cracker Barrel, this car never seems to move.
As I've got this load marked to be able to identify what the car's done, if it doesn't move, you can go into JMRI and make it move, and I'll show you how. All right, we're not going to spend a ton of time on JMRI.
You say that every week. I'm starting to stopwatch.
If you've got cars that aren't moving, let's say this Sioux bulkhead, it's not moving out of Union Yard, and you want to get it out of there, you can set cars to go places once they're emptied or loaded. So in this application, you go to set. I'm going to take this car and say return when empty, and I'm going to send it to, let's go to the Sioux transfer. Now note that this car is set to empty currently. We have a load sitting on it, but I'm giving you a demonstration on when return to empty. If you want to do return to loaded, you can do that as well, but I'm not using that just because I want the cars, when they're loaded, to go to different industries around the railroad. I don't want to set that as a prerequisite. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this. We're going to go to our trains window, and we're going to look at the trains we already populated, but I know I want the Sioux transfer rebuilt, and we're going to keep an eye on Union Yard looking at this particular car. I hit reset, I hit build, and notice that it didn't pop up yet, and that's okay, because the JMRI just looked for other cars and said, hey, I want something else right now, but if I hit reset and build, there it is. That car now is going to be targeted, and it's going to go to the Sioux transfer, and that's one way to be able to navigate and specifically move cars to locations where you want them to go.
Time's up.
Wake up.
Did you fall asleep watching that JMRI segment?
Well, it's quiz time.
Here's a fun fact.
These big 1750 horsepower 6-axle locomotives were equally comfortable handling long consists of grain or iron ore, as they were a heavy-duty switching or local train service on branch lines. How many SD7s and SD9s did the GN have on their roster? Was it A, 20, B, 23, C, 27, or D, 50? We'll find out later in this episode.
Getting to know the GN in 1970. Jobs for Ops. Willmar Yard.
Here we are looking at the Willmar job, and the Willmar Yard job is handling the Willmar Yard here. The cars in the distance, the Great Northern, the 40-foot Milwaukee Road car, those are part of the Willmar trim. And the Willmar trim is a simple job that you can able to run just a few cars across the main and handle the industry action. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a box car down there that's considered the team track. That is part of the Willmar trim. It's a key element to note because a lot of times you may overlook the far east end of the yard. But there is the elevator that is located there. That's part of your trim job. And then as you swing to the right here, the industries on those back tracks, that's part of the Willmar trim. There's the warehouse. There's also a team track or a Topsy track with a Topsy ramp.
And then not to forget, around the corner here
is the Willmar Freight House. So that's all part of the Willmar trim. The lines that are going on the right-hand side, what I'm referring to are those two, is that's your yard lead on the right, the main line to the left, and then the Sioux City line is on the very far left. as well as your access to what could be your caboose track. That would be in the foreground here by the engine facility. And of course your couple of cabooses that you have on hand. So that in a nutshell is Willmar Yard, taking a look at what does it take to run Willmar Yard. Willmar's a good job to be able to pick up. This is kind of a fun one. You do have a couple of turns that you handle that just come in and out and they head back up the Sioux City line. You do have the passenger train that will pass by, so you got a little spectating and sightseeing you can do. But overall, the job itself is fairly straightforward. It's kind of fun. They do have the trim to be able to handle running, but overall I think you probably get 4 or 5 trains that you got to work, and in the end, if you do like working a yard, this is a fun one to do.
I get that you find the car by looking at it on this list, but what if you can't find the car in general?
That's a great question. What we do is we just hit set and we will go location unknown and hit save, and that will then print this car's car number at the bottom of every switch list for anybody that is in a yard and says, hey, I got this bulkhead, GN 160012.
Where does it go?
You'd uncheck the box and then relocate the car to this location or change it to the current location in which you found it. Well, here's what we have on the workbench: a piece of aluminum, some momentary buttons, and a couple of single pole double throw switches.
What are they for?
They're going to be for a new hostler panel in Union. It's an area that is hard to reach, so we end up putting in this panel. The panel itself sets up for the engine facility, and then there are a couple other switches for future expansion. Now, the actual yard ladder that you can see kind of on the back side of the railroad is hard to reach. So setting up these switches, it allows a little bit easier access to throw. Now, the video isn't synced up exactly with the two to show which are throwing which.
We get it. Stop pushing the buttons.
We're happy that this panel turned out the way it did, and it is nice for an operator to be able to access and throw switches without having to reach across the railroad. All right, we're back with this week's quiz question on how many SD7s and SD9s the GN had. Did you guess D? 50? Most were assigned to the lines east, and many were found hardworking on the Mesabi division, where 28 were allocated during 1969. All right, what we're looking at and what you just heard was a Genesis CB&Q caboose. It is a nicely done caboose by Athearn. You heard the sound as it rolled in to give you a little bit more of the sound options that they have available. There's the peanut air whistle. The bell. And if you turn on the livestock function, you can listen to some cattle.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
We are just going to look at some of the fine details that this caboose has to offer. As you notice, the windows, much like their locomotives, the windows do move, so you can adjust those accordingly. It's kind of a neat little feature. The details on this thing is insane. The metal roof walkways are etched, and the grab irons, as you can see how fine they are. The interior does have lights as well as the end marker lights. When the caboose was coming in, you might not have noticed it, but the red light was on. That's one of the downsides, I think, of this caboose, is they're a little bit dim. They could be a little bit brighter just to show that indication, because even in the dark, it's kind of difficult to see. And what do I mean by that? I'm actually going to turn the interior lights on. You can see those going on and off. You think, oh, that's not too bad. If I can see those going on and off during the brighter light, the end light ought to be visible as well. So we're actually going to pull the caboose forward just slightly, just to give you an angle where you can see. Keep your eye on the red light that is on the end of the caboose right here. When I turn the light off, if you can see that little red dot, you've got good eyes. The camera is having a hard time picking it up. But we're going to turn the interior lights off if we can.
That's a tiny red light.
Turn the lights back on so we can see it. But as you can see, that red light was extremely hard to see, even in pitch black light, which that's not how most of us model railroaders like to run. I think that's the one shortcoming on this particular caboose. But overall, the detail is insane. I think these things were retailing around like $129-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And if you're over there sitting there filling your depends, it is a lot when it comes to a plastic caboose, but it's a lot less when it comes to a brass caboose. So a painted, finished, done model in this particular condition is quite impressive. So That's why we picked one of these up, just to take a look at it. I think it's going to be a nice model to have on the railroad. Represent the CB&Q, and hopefully Athearn in the future does Great Northern.
The Great Northern is a huge railroad.
You know, they had a lot of their rolling stock that went into the BN, so for the BN modelers, they're doing this particular caboose in BN, but the Great Northern had a lot of cabooses that also ended up in BN paint that lasted a long time. So hopefully we'll see that in the future, but you're not going to see this one anytime soon because it's rolling out. Here we are looking at a 1967 Ford Custom 500. These are die-cast cars, so the car body itself is metal. The hood happens to be plastic, but the grille and the wheels, well, I'm going to upgrade these to make them look a little less blingy. As you can see, the grille itself is, well, there's a lot of chrome. And the wheels, they don't look so great, the white walls, and I think the silver wheel needs to be downgraded so it looks a little bit more basic. But as far as the grille is concerned, this is a technique that can be applied to any type of vehicle with a lot of chrome. It's a very simple process. I just use the Tamiya black accent washes.
Seems like you use that for everything.
Well, it works really well because there's really not a whole lot of issue in terms of trial and error. Just taking a car right out of the box, you can apply the black wash right to the grille. And as you can see, it's just getting into the recesses and you're leaving the chrome on the surface, just adding a little bit more depth. And I do put it around the headlights as well for the same reason.
Just so there's less of that chrome look.
And as far as this application is concerned, you can apply it to just about any grille on any vehicle, and you're going to enhance it just that much more. So it's worth giving it a try.
Not bad.
So as you can see, that's a pretty simple technique to apply that wash to any of your silver or chrome grills and get a nice looking effect. I would highly suggest taking any car that you have on your railroad, go from that shiny chromey and bling look to a little bit more of a natural, worn, or have depth to it look. Now I would take these cars a little bit further by possibly adding a license plate, get crazy and add an antenna, but I also do swap out wheels. Now in this case, I'm going to take the wheels off this Carmen Ghia because it's a little bit more of a basic wheel. It's a steel wheel with kind of a hub on it, and that's kind of a look that'll make the thing look a little less, well, white-walled and shiny. Now, it's more of a basic, maybe you can think of it as snow tires, but I do wash those rims with a little bit of black to give them a little bit more depth. But all in all, pretty happy. The license plate added, antenna has been added, the wash has been done, and the wheels have been swapped. In the end, ends up turning out to be kind of a nice little ride.
Modeler highlights with Lester Brewer, Minneapolis and Northland Railroad.
Here we are taking a look at the Minneapolis and Northland Railroad Company modeling page. This is put up by Les Brewer. He puts together a blog that covers a lot of things from kit bashing to scratch building to resin kits to car card systems to what type of tools he uses. If you really like some of that nitty-gritty detail, you might want to take a look at this site. He posts, I would say, every couple of times a month. You can go back into his archives and look at all the different things that he does cover. It's very well written, covers a lot of detail. So if this is the type of thing that you like, or you just want to check out just some of the different things a modeler might be doing, check out Les's Minneapolis and Northland Railroad Company modeling page.
Nice job, Les.
If you'd like to subscribe to this particular blog, you can contact Lester Brewer directly at rforailroad@comcast.net.
Let them know we sent you.
Nobody's getting paid or compensated for these segments. Merely just sharing railroad modelers' data and information with all of you to enjoy.
Do you know what time it is?
No, what time is it?
It's time for a run-by.
Ooh, I like a good run-by.
Remember to please like, tag, share, and follow, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel.
And if you'd like to see the hobby grow, a simple click goes a long way.
Thanks for watching.
You done shoot about as good as you model.
I had a question this week about people that asked, what's your favorite kind of operation? Well, it ain't that naked guy with the red nose where you reach in and pull out plastic parts and it buzzes. As a kid, kind of scared me. And some operations kind of scare me too. When it comes down to it, if it's a clear and concise scheme that makes sense, I'm all in. If it's confusing, it's got a lot of reading, I'm out. Colon likes something that's been vetted, that's tried and true. Colon's out.
Hopefully you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you want to see more, you can check out more episodes of the GN in 1970, as well as Sue the Milwaukee Road. You can see a tour of the GN in 1970 and even a few other layout tours. Nonetheless, check out the content and hopefully enjoy that as well as future episodes. Thanks for watching.